I'm your host with the most, Welcome 23. You're joining me for Desire and Decorum, Book 1, Chapter 6, An Intimate Affair. After arriving at your townhouse in London, you and Miss Parsons both glare at Mr. Marlcaster, who still clutches your grandmother's letter. Why did you leave us stranded in London? Did your mother intend I never make it here at all? Briar gives Mr. Marlcaster an encouraging smile as he tries to choke out a response. Some kind of misunderstanding. You set me up to get lost in London. Did only what your mother told you. Remember, we have to be nice. Remember that in the past book? Yeah, or chapter. I know it was your mother's order to abandon me. She's the one who wishes me harm, not you. Mr. Carl Ganster, glances at you, then at Briar, who is still behind you. My mother wrote that the Dowager Countess had made other arrangements. And you believed her? She is my mother and Countess of Edgewater. It's not my place to disobey her orders. My father entrusted my safety to this household. What would you tell him had my virtue been assaulted while we were lost? My apologies, Miss Parson. I hadn't considered... Feuds that last for generations have started over less. Miss Parsons flounces out the front door and you rush after her. You reach the front step. Out of Mr. Marlcaster's sight, Miss Parsons doubles over, giggling. Did you see his face? He is terrified of you. He should be. Did you see him try to worm out of taking any responsibility? Mr. Marlcaster, in a tough position, has a backbone of a salted slug, is less interesting than you. Is less interesting than you. You take her hands, gently twining your fingers through hers. Tell me, Edmund Marlcaster, is the only thing on your mind right now? Edmund who? Before you can say more, Miss Parsons notices a young woman in a fine gown getting into a carriage across the street. She jumps. Oh, for a moment I thought that was my sister. I must get to her house before she gets worried. I know she has plans lined up for me all week, so I shall try to visit sometime. She plants a kiss on your cheek and hurries across the square. Goodbye, love interest number 1. As you return to the drawing room, the sound of an unfamiliar laughter catches your attention. Can't believe you've never bought a meal before. Where I lived, we always grew and cooked everything ourselves. Well, there are many bachelors in London without a wife to cook for them. The stores try to fill with need. Well, then I hope they are all so lucky to find a wife. She gives him a dimpled smile. Mr. Marlcaster's face reddens as he glances away. It is only lucky if it's the right wife. He reaches for Briar's hand just as you clear your throat. They both jump back guiltily. Show Lodi Bella to her rooms, Miss Sally, on the 2nd floor. Briar lifts her skirts and curtsies with a flash of a slim ankle. Of course, sir. Mr. Marlcaster quickly leaves the room as you and Briar walk towards the stairs. Bad, Mr. Marlcaster. Flirting with the help. Briar. I think Mr. Marlcaster fancies you. Briar pulls you quickly out of earshot. Do you really think he might? Briar, I've known the man over a fortnight. This is the first I've seen him smile. I know you've tried to be kind to him, Bella, and he appreciates that. It's just hard with the Countess. Twilight is already falling as Briar leads you into your new bedroom. You sit down on the large bed. Do you really care for Mr. Marlcaster, then? What about Mr. Woods? You know I like him, but it's not as if I have had an understanding with either of them. Mr. Marlcaster has just been kind to me. I feel bad for him, trapped between you and the Countess. You know he's engaged to Miss Sutton. I'm not... We're not. He is far above me. It's just a harmless flirtation. She turns her full attention to your luggage. Now, let's get you unpacked. Mr. Sinclair is having an intimate dinner party tomorrow night, and your grandmother told me you must go to the tailor first thing in the morning to find a new dress for it. The next morning, you and Miss Sutton browse through the trailer's dresses together. Oh, the first dinner party of your debut. You must be near fainting. I thought it would be an intimate affair. How many people will be there? Well, my heavens, I don't know. I'm sure Mr. Sinclair would never invite fewer than 20 to a London dinner. 20. And everyone will be looking at you, of course, since it's your debut. Miss Sutton puts down the ivory silk dress she was looking at, her face suddenly falling. I remember my debut. My mama just must have told me 100 times not to talk too much, but of course I couldn't stop myself. But it didn't matter. That was the year the eldest Holloway sister made her debut. None of the men even looked at me. Oh. Well, you're not that great a catch. Wow! Really? Talk about being a douche. That must have been difficult. It was Mama. She was so upset with me. My heavens, the things she said. But then, when we made the match with Mr. Marlcaster, Mama could barely believe it. I mean, he's barely gentry on his father's side, of course, but his mother's a countess. And then, when poor Harry passed, there were talks of Mr. Marlcaster inheriting. We just... Miss Sutton's stream of words stops abruptly as she looks at you. I mean, he won't be inheriting, so my word, here we are. Shopping for gowns for your debut. Do you see any you like? They're all beautiful. Oh, this would look marvelous on you. She pulls out a silk gown in the rich wine color, then looks at it happily. Do you happen to know what color of rich wine it is? Could it be white, red? What? Just look at the decolletage. You'll be turning the heads of every man there. She thrusts the dress in your hands. Try it on. I'll never be beautiful like you, but I know a gorgeous dress when I see one. You look fine. Your attitude just sucks sometimes. Ah, pink. There's a lot of pink wines. Do you drink? Some Seagrams, maybe? I'm just saying. It looked okay. I think I'll wear this. Oh, just as well. Nothing here looks good on me. I shall be grateful I'm not the only one coming in an old gown. Change your mind? No. No. What I wouldn't give to look like you. Why, I'll even be wearing homespun. You are always the prettiest maid in the village. That night in Mr. Sinclair's townhouse. Oh, we're supposed to click again. Oh my. Ah, Mr. Marlcaster, Miss Sutton, Lady Bella, please be welcome. I always forget what a grand home you have, Mr. Sinclair. It's a shame you don't entertain more often. Your house is quite splendid. It was built long ago, and without my help, so I can take a little credit for it. It is so hard, then, for you to accept a compliment. It is an unpleasant sentiment. Perhaps I prefer a compliment on my own achievements and not what I own. Whereas I would take any compliment, so long as it is sincerely meant. Can you two stop this bickering back and forth, please? Like, it's old. Mr. Sinclair holds open the door as you follow Mr. Marlcaster, and Miss Sutton inside. I am pleased to have you here, Lady Bella. I dare say the party will be more entertaining with your presence. A young woman suddenly approaches and seizes Mr. Sinclair's arm. Mr. Sinclair, I couldn't imagine where you had disappeared to. You mustn't abandon me like that. The woman's eyes, she's kind of pretty, flick over you, but she keeps her attention on Mr. Sinclair. I was hardly outside for a moment. What could you imagine would happen? But here I was expecting an entire evening in your company. Every moment short of that is a tragedy. Mr. Sinclair gently removes his arm from her grasp. Miss Holloway, may I present Lady Bella of Edgewater? Lady Bella, Miss Felicity Holloway. A pleasure to meet you, Miss Holloway. Ah, yes, the Earl's natural daughter. Your father's announcement quite shocked everyone. Lady Bella, is that not right, Mr. Sinclair? Mr. Sinclair doesn't answer, his eyes still on you. My father wasn't trying to shock anyone, Miss Holloway. With my brother's death, it was imperative that Edgewater have a heir. Well, it was quite brave of him to trust your mother's claim, a child born 20 years ago. That father could be almost anyone. So you're accusing us of our mother being a whore. Okay. My father recognized me immediately, loved my mother. He's the Earl of Edgewater. No one else. Hmm. This is tough. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with this one. It seems neutral. We're trying to be diplomatic. Well, of course you would say that, but how could you know? Only your mother could say for sure, if she could even remember. Wouldn't you say, Mr. Sinclair? Mr. Sinclair! Mr. Sinclair finally tears his eyes away from you. He shakes his head, clearly having not heard a word. Ah, my apologies. I was, It's like the poet says, is it not? The clouds that gather round the setting sun do take a sober colouring from an eye. That hath kept watcher, O man's mortality. Another race hath been, and other palms are won. How did that one end again, Lady Bella? I want to be facetious here. And now I want to die. And, thus saith I? That one seems like it's unsure. And how much is that to buy? And now I want to die. Let's end with that. Miss Holloway rolls her eyes. Thanks to the human heart by which we live, thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears. Ah, that's what I meant. To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. That's exactly the one. Well, that sure as shit wasn't an answer for us. I cannot believe Lady Bella does not know even the most basic Wordsworth. Can you? Quoting the better thoughts of another man shows nothing about one's intellect, Miss Holloway. She gaps at him and then gives a tight nod. Just so. If you'll excuse me, I see someone over there. Bye. You and Mr. Sinclair are left standing alone, just shy of the main group of dinner guests. You follow him as he walks towards the kitchen. Mr. Sinclair. You're quite the romantic hero. You need no one's help to defend yourself, Lady Bella. Well, then why did you do it? Your eyes meet for a moment before he turns away. I cannot bear pretension. That is Mr. Wordsworth's work to take pride in, not Miss Holloway's. Still, it wasn't my upbringing she insulted. I appreciate you not taking her part. Mr. Sinclair reaches down, his arm brushing past your skirts as he pulls a book from the shelf. Personally, I found Wordsworth a tad overwrought. I prefer the classics. Poetry. If only it had a title on it. It was a large book to an earmarked section, you look at the heading. Shakespeare's Sonnets. Should you wish to expand your knowledge and save yourself any need for rescuing from the likes of Miss Holloway. He offers you the book as you take it from him, your fingers brush. For just an instant, you open to a random page. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leash hath all too short a date. Of course. Who didn't see that one coming? At it for diamonds! Refused the book. I will not compete against Miss Holloway at her own game. No. I imagine you only like games where you set the rules. You know me so well. I know, show us our very empty room. Thank you, I feel like Cinderella. Where's our fairy godmother? A bell rings suddenly, calling the guests in to dinner. People begin to line up 2 by 2. One man for each woman. Mr. Sinclair's at the front. Excuse me, I should be next to Mr. Sinclair. As the legitimate daughter of a viscount, I am the ranking lady here tonight. I won't make a scene. If it means so much to you to walk with Mr. Sinclair, I wouldn't dream of undermining you. Holloway scowls as you accept a place in line behind her. Because we're all getting to the same goddamn place. Suddenly the door swings open at the back of the room and everyone swivels around to see... Oh, good! Someone of quality at last. Oh, we're all doomed now. My apologies for the late arrival, but I only just heard about the party. Duke Richards. Glance at Mr. Sinclair, whose face has gone rigid with fury. I do not remember issuing you an invitation, Your Grace. Ah, then it's quite fortunate for you, for me, that you would never be so improper as to ask your social betters to leave what they come to call. You are, of course, the expert of propriety. Duke Richard strides confidently past Mr. Sinclair, elbowing him aside to offer Miss Holloway his arm. He then turns back to face you. Oh, hi, thought you were going for me. Lady Bella, so good to see you again. I had hoped to find you here. Your Grace. The Duke takes your hand and plants a lingering kiss, first on your knuckles, then on the inside of your wrist. He smiles to the rest of the room. Ah, the new lady of Edgewater and I are already intimate acquaintances. Manners. All I do is keep thinking manners. Duke Richards, indeed, I should like us to be good friends. I was truly excited for the chance to get to know you at my father's party. Ah, of course you were. We did enjoy ourselves the other day, did we not? Dinner is served. At Mr. Sinclair's curt signal, the servants throw open the doors to the dining hall. The smell of roasted meat drifts out. Mr. Sinclair tucks your hand into his arm. Lady Bella, it seems we are to walk together after all. I hope you aren't disappointed. I was about to say the same. Oh, please. Do I want a pompous airbag or you? Let's think about this. You walk into the room where a long table is set with porcelain, silver, small calligraphed place cards sit on each plate. Enjoy your meal, Lady Bella. He walks to the head of the table, leaving you and Duke Richards looking at the place cards. Ah, good evening, Miss Lady Bella. I believe you are between me and Mr. Marlcaster. Mr. Bartholomew Chambers at your service. He bows with a sweep of his arm. A pleasure. I am overwhelmed with the honor of meeting this year's most eligible young lady during her first appearance in society. I understand it's an exciting time. Well, it's So far, it's been a lot of figuring out where to stand in line. Frankly, I expected better. Indeed. Usually the lining up goes a little more quickly than that, but no one quite knows where to put you. Duke Richard shoulders past Mr. Chambers. Ah, why, Mr. Sinclair, I'm hurt. I don't see a place set for me. You're gonna sit down next to us, aren't you? Mr. Sinclair's brows knit. His voice remains level. That is a drawback of coming uninvited, Your Grace. We hardly had any time to accommodate you. Unfortunately, that leaves us with an uneven number of men and women. Quite unacceptable. The Duke's gaze lands on Mr. Chambers. Perhaps Mr. Chambers can give me his seat. I'm sure he wouldn't mind moving to sit between two men. Ha ha ha! Mr. Chambers looks at the table, color rising in his cheeks. Duke Richards. Shit. You're gonna sit next to me. The number of men and women don't matter. I wanted to get to know Mr. Chambers. I'm gonna go with the middle. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the middle. My dear, everyone knows you need even numbers of men and women to make a party. No, you don't. That's ridiculous. Maybe for dancing, but what does it matter at dinner? No true gentleman would waste his time talking to another man when he could be wooing a lovely lady. The Duke pulls out Mr. Chambers' chair and sits in it, dismissively handing Mr. Chambers his place card. Go find yourself another place, Chambers. You're wasted on the ladies. That is hardly an appropriate way to address my guests. It's, quite all right, sir. I don't mind moving. I'm sorry. Mr. Chambers shakes his head with a glance at the Duke, then kisses your hand and leaves. Anything else you would like to rearrange, Your Grace? Oh, I shall be certain to let you know if I think of it as something. At the other end of the table, servants scramble to lay an extra plate in setting for Mr. Chambers next to a bearded man. Pardon for the intrusion. The man answers with an accented English. It's no trouble at all, my lord. The men's eyes meet, and Mr. Chambers sits, pulling his chair close. You turn back to the Duke. So basically, you can tell he's kinda... You know, it's insinuated. Nothing wrong with it, just saying. It's nice that maybe it was just fate that made the two together. You know, you never know. You have gone to a great trouble to sit beside me, Your Grace. You noticed. You are as clever as you are beautiful. You have hardly been subtle. Subtlety is for those without the courage to be bold. Everyone sifts their soups as the servants quietly ready the main course. Your eyes drift to the other end of the table where Miss Holloway hangs on Mr. Sinclair. Weren't you just hanging on the Duke a minute ago? So clever, Mr. Sinclair. I could never think of half of what you... The Duke lays a hand on yours, claiming your attention. So, I can't imagine your father had much chance to show you the workings of Edgewater. Not as much as I would like, Your Grace. Mr. Marlcaster speaks up eagerly on your other side. I have worked with the Earl on the estate quite a bit. The Duke continues right over him. And how are you enjoying London, Lady Bella? Just shh. He's naturally this way, Mr. Marlcaster. London has been... Well, we met that gentleman in the carriage. Exciting. I know I haven't seen a quarter of what the city has to offer yet, but it's still amazing. I never thought I'd be here. And I am most hopeful to see an opera. My mother was an opera singer when she and my father met. He saw one of her performances and fell in love. The Duke's eyebrows shoot up and he politely covers his mouth with his napkin. I had not heard of that. We all assumed your mother was, well, not a singer. What did you think she was? Do you have a problem with opera singers?
Of course not. I have seen many lovely performances, so I understand how they might stir a man.
I saw the marriage of Figaro at Covent Garden last year. I thought it was overrated.
Ah, tell me more about what you wish to see at the opera, my lady.
Well, let's be nice. We should let Mr. Marlcaster speak. Mr. Marlcaster, what was that you left go cold about the marriage of Figaro?
Oh, well, that is, I hear it's better in the original German. Indeed, I have seen it performed at the Fürhaus Theater de Wieden in Vienna. Absolutely stunning.
Yes, well, I have never been to Vienna. Servants pile the table with a platter after platter of steaming food. Red mullet with cardinal sauce, marrow pot pate, sweetbreads, goddamn French, sweetbreads, juice, Jew? I don't know. I'm sure someone will correct me, don't worry. There's so much food. Across the table, an old man hears your exclamation and turns to you in confusion.
Who are you calling a fool?
Miss Sutton, sitting beside him, grabs his arm with a giggle. She speaks loudly into his ear trumpet. She said food, not full, my lord.
Huh?
Food, not full.
Oh, in my day, a lady would never offer a man food, my beauty.
Miss Sutton simpers, then catches your eye from across the table.
Oh, Lady Bella, let me introduce you. This is the Viscount Westerly. My lord, Viscount Lady Bella of Edgewater is making her debut.
We're gonna have this comical relief if he can't hear shit the whole entire time, huh? The Viscount peers at you, then breaks into a broad smile, sending a puff of foul breath in your direction.
Nothing better than a girl at her first debut. I met my last two wives at their London debuts, you know.
That is, Manners, manners, charming. I'm sure it's, every young girl's dream to, meet a Viscount like you.
Ah, then you'll be happy to hear that I am opening for a wife, number 5. Ha 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 ha.
Wonderful. Duke Richards leans close to you to speak to the Viscount. Can't hear.
Shameless, isn't he?
Kinda like you. Does he really need a 5th wife? It was rather poor luck for the lady. Duke Richards laughs loudly enough to draw a curious look from the Viscount.
It does seem rather optimistic to be chasing girls at his age. What would he do with one if he caught her?
You laugh uncomfortably, trying to move your chair back a little to make some space. A second later, Mr. Sinclair walks over to you and the Duke. Is everything to your satisfaction, my lady? Your Grace.
What are you doing over here, Sinclair? Don't you have people to entertain?
That's what he's doing. He's making sure it's good, you idiot. Simply doing my duty as a host, Your Grace. Have you tried the plover eggs? They're my cook's specialty.
I'm really more interested in the sweetmeats.
I am well aware of your tastes.
And you have always provided the choicest dishes.
Ah, so about the Parliament, what are they up to this season? The tension breaks slightly as both men look at you in surprise. I should talk about London. And, what's the most interesting place to see in London?
I think our Lady Bella is trying to change the subject. Were we making you uncomfortable, my dear?
No, just you. Your very presence in this home. Of course we were, but she's too polite to say it. And if you were a gentleman, you would stick with a subject change when a lady goes to the trouble of making one.
That burn.
Mr. Sinclair gives you a little nod. Indeed. Later, after dinner. You stand in the doorway of the living room, Duke Richard still at your side. He hasn't found super glue yet, basically. never eaten so much in my life. Do people eat like this here every night?
Before the Duke can answer, Miss Holloway comes over, delicately hiding her face and behind her fan.
Your Grace, no one was expecting you to see you tonight.
Ah, the season has hardly started. I find myself dreadfully short of entertainment.
Surely a man like you could never lack for company.
As Miss Holloway flutters her fan at the Duke again, you move away, finding Mr. Chambers, and he's still with the man he ended up seating beside.
Lady Bella, I am sorry to miss the chance to get to know you.
But not too sorry. Mr. Chambers silences him with a raised finger and a smile. Aha! We called it! They bonded!
I'm glad you found a way to enjoy yourself.
My new friend, Mr. Yusuf Kunivi, and this is Lady Bella. A pleasure. More sherry, my lord. Excuse me. As the two men leave, you turn to see Mr. Marlcaster standing alone, and somewhat forlorn looking behind you. You told you fate. When Harry was here, I never had to worry about who to talk to at dinner like this. He was always the center of any conversation.
Our brother sounds like he was quite a charmer.
He always knew exactly what to say.
Mr. Marlcaster, I'm sorry. It must be hard being here without him.
The last dinner party I attended in London, we were together.
What was he like?
Harry? He wasn't afraid to walk up to Prince Regent and introduce himself. It was so much easier to go along with him than... Well, now I get tongue-tied and stammer like a fool for Duke Richards.
I hardly think Duke Richards is worth impressing.
Harry used to call him the king of braggarts. You laugh and Mr. Marlcaster looks wistful. I've tried my best to honor Harry by stepping into his role of Edgewater, but it will never be more than a reminder of how much I fall short. A slightly tipsy Miss Sutton stumbles up to you and Mr. Marlcaster.
Mr. Marlcaster, I was looking all over for you.
Mr. Marlcaster gives a slightly pained smile. Excuse me. As they leave, you notice Mr. Sinclair watching you from across the room. Incoming diamond choice. Lady Bella, surprised to see you alone again. One began to wonder whether Duke Richard had staked a permanent claim.
Mr. Sinclair, would you rather have me for yourself?
Your grandmother would hardly approve you asking such an impertinent question.
And she would certainly know that you chose not to answer.
Mr. Sinclair does not meet your eyes, looking instead at the Duke, talking to Miss Sutton and Miss Holloway. I would hope any woman would consider herself safer in my company than with his grace.
What did he do to you?
Mr. Sinclair takes a deep breath. I will simply give you a warning. Duke Richards is not a suitable husband for you, whatever his title or power.
Why do you care? What does it matter to you who I marry?
Mr. Sinclair hesitates a moment too long before he can answer. Miss Sutton's nasal voice carries loudly across the room.
Of course Mr. Sinclair used to be married. Don't you know? This is her house.
You and Mr. Sinclair both whip around to see Miss Sutton talking to Miss Holloway at the pianoforte.
Mr. Sinclair? Oh my, yes. It was the talk of the town when she died in childbirth. She was such a pretty young thing.
Had a bit much to drink, have we, Miss Sutton? Mr. Sinclair goes white, his lips pressed in a thin line. Excuse me, I just remembered an urgent errand.
Is that true? Did your wife...
My wife was dead to me long before.
But why?
Continue without me. I'm hardly needed here anymore. Without another word, Mr. Sinclair turns on his heel and walks out of the front door. Mr. Chambers comes up behind you, concerned. What happened?
I don't know. Miss Sutton mentioned his wife, and then...
He was overcome with grief?
No, he seemed angry. Still, it's best if he weren't alone at the time like this. Perhaps you should go after him and make sure he's all right. If you follow Mr. Sinclair now, you'll get to spend time alone with him, learn more about his past, and improve your relationship, all for 20 diamonds or less. Hey, look at that! I'm tempted. Again, I'm tempted. Tempted to do a diamond edition later this week. I think he needs some time alone. Room is silent. Guests shift uncomfortably. Mr. Sinclair said to continue without him. Shall we have some music?
Ah, Lady Bella, will you grace us with a song?
Perhaps I can join Miss Sutton. You take your place next to Miss Sutton at the pianoforte. I'm not feeling like singing. Let's just give this our best hoorah, shall we? They'll always leave you, as mine left me, to blow the candle out. There, see? Alright, we're done. As the clock strikes midnight. You're just singing to a piano like this. It's just kind of Exhausted and hoarse from the singing, you stumble towards the door. Duke Richards opens it for you.
I hope to see you, much more of you, now that the season is truly underway.
Of course. You can barely speak for yawning. The Duke smiles.
Good night, Lady Bella.
Where's Mr. Sinclair? I must say goodbye. You spot Mr. Sinclair watching from the doorway. He gives a slight bow. Farewell, Lady Bella. Until we meet again. Stagger out the door into your carriage. The next morning. You're still sleeping when Briar opens the door to your room. Miss Parsons close behind her. I value sleep. Get out! I'm so sorry to disturb you so early. Lady Bella, are you up? Miss Parsons. Quite frankly, they've accented the top of your boobies a bit much. Why are they more noticeable than before? Holy shit. What time is it? We've both just received an invitation from the Duke of Collington. We're to attend Opera St. James with him in his private box. Rub the sleep from your eyes. Opera St. James. Where have I heard that before? That's where my mother used to sing. Next time on Desire and Decorum, shop for a dress to dazzle at the opera and learn about your mother's life as a star. Will your trip to Opera St. James hit a high note or end up falling flat? Hold on just a moment. I have to do this for humor's sake.
Get up! I know you're asleep, but get up! We gotta talk about this!
I'm serious. You don't. When I'm sleeping, you don't barge into my room, okay? I've knocked the shit out of your ass. You wake me up subtly, okay? If you barge into my room, it better be that you got the world's best goddamn cup of coffee in your hand. That's the only acceptable. Only halfway decent acceptable. You better put it down, leave it on the side table or my desk, and leave very quickly right after. Or I swear to God, I'm getting the nearest thing and throwing it at your ass. Okay? Alright, with that being said, man, I hope you all did enjoy the video. Remember, for you on YouTube, to like, share, and subscribe. Head down the description below, links to social media, Discord, and a few links to support me and my content. Remember, we do streams for Choices on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We do many other streams on top of that as well. But if you want to tune in live for the Choices, or watch them in the future when you got time and you get to tune in with the community and everything and see everything that was discussed and behind the scenes, you can always do that at any time. Like I said, the link for Twitch is down below. At the end of the next Void video, which is up next, I will have a kind of like an important announcement, and then there will be a video later today, a very short one. Especially if you're a fan of my content and a fan of me doing chapters, there's a very important thing that I need to address with you that only a handful of people in the Discord know about, and I plan on bringing this forward to everyone. So yeah, look forward to that. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.